Yippee Mr. FLIXTER.
In this episode, I'm going to talk about one of my all-time favorite Christmas movies,
Die Hard.
I love Die Hard.
Full disclosure, we actually had to film this video twice because we had technical difficulties the first time. So I just kind of spliced the two videos together. Enjoy!
Meowie Christmas. Meow. It's winter, so I'm ready for High Boy Nation. Meow, meow, meow. When I grow up, I want to be like John McClane and live easy. Meow, 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 meow.
and I thought, who better to discuss this movie with than the person who introduced this film to me in the first place? My older brother, all the way from California, Rick. So, I'm going to try and contact him on my handy-dandy radio. Shh. Ricky, can you hear with me? Shh. Ricky, are you there? Over. Shh.
Partner, I get copy you.
I read you loud and clear, brother. Are you ready to talk the greatest Christmas movie of all time? Over. Shh.
I'm ready. Over.
Shh. Copy that, brother. I'll roll the intro. Over. Shh.
You know my name, but who are you? Just another American who saw too many movies as a child?
Thank you for clicking on my video. You didn't have to do that, but I appreciate that you did.
Hello world! I'm Chris Whitey, aka Mr. FLIXTER. And I'm here to talk motion pictures.
Mr. FLIXTER.
Last year, I did a video with Movies and Munchies about our favorite Bruce Willis movies, so I'll leave a link below for that. Enjoy! Yippee-ki-yay, mother lovers! This is going to be a spoiler review, by the way, so I haven't seen Die Hard. I love Die Hard! By now. What are you doing with your life?
Yeah, right?
Hey, it's good to see you.
Hello, everyone on Mr. FLIXTER's channel. How are you?
I'm doing awesome. Thanks.
How's it going?
I'm doing pretty good.
How's the weather in California?
By California standards, it's actually pretty cold. No, there's no snow. And yes, that is a palm tree behind me, but yeah, it's kind of cold.
No way. Thanks a lot for keeping doing this. I really appreciate that.
Absolutely. I mean, we're talking Christmas movies here. Die Hard. I love Die Hard. Yippee Mr. FLIXTER.
I remember being really young when I saw this. I mean, I was still living in California, so I must have been younger than 10.
I was such an awesome influence on you. You know, I'd say you turned out just fine.
Yeah, and then Mom walked in on us, and she was not pleased when she found out what we were watching together. Remember that?
Yes, I do remember that. I do remember having to talk my way out of that one real quick so that Mom didn't just outright turn it off.
Yeah.
You probably about 8 years old, maybe 9 years old, maybe. And I remember getting yelled at by mom because I was showing you Die Hard.
I love Die Hard.
To which my response was, "What? It's a Christmas movie."
Even then you argued it was a Christmas movie.
And for those of us that are old enough to remember, that was back when VHS tapes, brand new, a movie would cost $75.
No, I didn't know that.
It puzzles me why people discredit Die Hard
I love Die Hard.
as a Christmas movie.
Right?
Christmas references and iconography are far and wide. Yeah, we'll get into that a bit later, though. I'm saving that for the end. 35 years ago, a team of thieves took hostages in the Nakatomi Plaza, a skyscraper towering high above Los Angeles, and declared war. One man managed to flee. An off-duty cop sealed within. Alone and exhausted, he's everyone's last hope for survival.
And he has no shoes.
Yes, I'm so glad you mentioned his feet. I got a fun fact about that. For most of the film, because he's barefoot, what they had to do is they made like molds out of his feet. They made like feet-shaped shoes that he put over his own feet. Think of it like Lord of the Rings, how they did the Hobbit feet.
I did not know that. Wow.
Joining us this evening, I have two other very special invited guests. John McClane.
Hey.
He's even got a little gun. He's got a little walkie-talkie. Can you see that?
I certainly can.
And his shirt's all dirty.
You know, you're in a construction site. You're climbing around in air ducts and elevator shafts. I wonder how many white beaters they went through in the making of that film.
And say hello to Hans Gruber.
That's pretty cool.
He's also got a little walkie-talkie and a gun.
Nice. I love it.
Looking spiffy, I might add.
Oh. That is cool.
So after John kills all the henchmen, does that make Hans Solo?
Right.
So, the original Die Hard
I love Die Hard.
came out in 1988. It was made on a $28 million budget, and it opened on July 22nd. It made $7 million on its opening weekend, and it ended up earning $140 million in total after its initial release.
That's impressive. Those are big numbers.
So tell me, Rick, what are some of your favorite action sequences?
Action sequences. I like the fight that he gets in with the first terrorist who he tries to get shoes from.
You won't hurt me.
Oh, yeah? Why not?
It's a very, very good fight scene.
Because you're a policeman. There are rules for policemen.
Totally.
So my captain keeps telling me.
And then at the end of that, he tries to take the shoes and he makes a comment somewhere along the lines of, all the terrorists I have to kill, and I find one with feet smaller than my sister.
9 million terrorists in the world, and I gotta kill one with feet smaller than my sister.
I think one of the first action scenes that I thought was really memorable was when John was trying to get the local law enforcement's attention, and we had his soon-to-be new friend Al, a patrol officer for LAPD, pull up and go inside and talk to who he thought was security down at the desk, but it was actually one of the terrorists. As he's leaving and radioing that everything is clear, he gets duped by the terrorist who's down there at the desk pretending to be security.
I gotcha.
You have John throw a body of one of the terrorists who he killed out of the window, and it lands on the hood of the patrol car, which, of course, is very distressing for Al.
Let it snow, let it snow, let it snow.
So he's radioing for help. He's driving in reverse. He ends up going off of a wall. Yeah, that was a good opener right there as far as action scenes go.
That's so true.
Welcome to the party, pal!
It was directed by John McTiernan, but did you know that he initially turned down the project because he thought it was too dark?
That is pretty cool. I did not know that.
He stipulated that the script needed to be more humorous before jumping on board. So, there's this show on Netflix. It's called The Movies That Made Us. Have you seen it?
Yes, I've seen it.
Awesome. So you know what I'm talking about.
One fun fact that I remembered, and I think it might have actually been in that Netflix special, was that for playing the character of John McClane, apparently, somehow Frank Sinatra was tied to that. And somehow, through wonderful rules of Hollywood and IP laws, they actually had to offer the role to Frank Sinatra before they could cast the role. At that point, though, it was 30, 40 years since he had played that character. And so he was older and he wasn't about to do stunts or anything like that. Plus, it wouldn't have been believable with him being a New York detective. So Sinatra graciously passed on the role, which allowed them to cast it.
You happy? Big wow.
There was a novel. It was written by Roderick Thorpe. It was called The Detective. And then later on, like in the 60s, it became a film starring Frank Sinatra.
That is cool.
The studio wanted the sequel, so Thorpe started to write another book, but it took him 10 years to do it. And that book was called Nothing Lasts Forever. However, 20th Century Fox waited another 8 years before approaching a guy named Jeb Stewart to adapt the screenplay. After reading the book, he also said that his script was inspired by a near-death experience that he had after an argument with his wife. Sound familiar?
Right.
So the studio bought the script and greenlit the project, but John McTiernan wanted it to be funnier, like I said, so they hired on Stephen E. D'Souza.
I did not know that.
They had him come in to kind of punch up the script.
That is pretty cool. That's a good fun fact.
I know, eh?
Well, and along those lines, I understand there's a backstory regarding how the movie was actually being written while it was being filmed.
Oh, I'm really glad that you mentioned that too. You are absolutely correct.
That's cool.
They started off shooting with only 35 pages of the rewritten script. D'Souza had to write it as they were filming it, so he constantly had to stay one step ahead of them. Do you know what I mean?
Got it.
So often he would go to the filming site, the tower, and he would look around the construction site for inspiration. And all the props that were used in all the different fight scenes were already there before they got there. So they kind of incorporated it into the film. Kind of like what they do with like Jackie Chan movies. He always uses his environment to help fight the bad guys.
That's cool. Right on.
That's so imaginative.
I thought so too.
At one point, Clint Eastwood was even attached before Bruce Willis got involved. Could you imagine if Clint Eastwood was in Die Hard instead?
I love Die Hard.
Wow. Had Clint Eastwood played that role, I think it would have been much more serious. I don't think it would have had the same comic flair to it that Bruce Willis brings to it. He's got that sarcasm, and it's not even really dry wit. It's just quick wit and sarcasm. It'll be fun, they said. You'll have a good time, they said.
Come out to the coast. We'll get together, have a few laughs.
I love the way this scene is lit. Let's just talk about the lighting real quick before we get into Bruce Willis. The whole scene is lit by his lighter. I've always wondered how they did this, because if they had any other light source, it would just reflect off the sides.
Yep. Well, that's one thing I thought of with that in the shaft where he lights the cigarette. Suddenly, obviously, it's not only the light coming off of it, but it appears that it couldn't be anything much more than candlelight, honestly, because that's all the light he has in there is that little lighter.
Bruce Willis is charming, he's witty, he's charismatic, and unlike a lot of the other action 80s heroes at the time, he's just a regular guy. And he's in the wrong place at the wrong time. If you think about it, it's very similar to Dante from Clerks.
I'm not even supposed to be here today!
Right. Exactly. Wow, that's a great parallel. Wow. Yeah, it's not like he was a cop who was visiting somewhere that actually found trouble and was looking for something going wrong. He actually was a reluctant hero.
If you think about it, in a lot of ways, The Fifth Element is kind of like Die Hard in space.
I love Die Hard.
Because the character Corbin Dallas is very similar to John McClane. He's just, a cab driver instead. But, he gets thrown into the situation. He wins a contest that he didn't want to be in. He goes to Floston Paradise. He doesn't really want to be there. He goes on this mission. He wants nothing to do with it. They're very similar characters. I'd totally be cool with them saying that Fifth Element was Die Hard in space.
I love Die Hard.
Yes. Yes.
I'd be fine with it.
Right? He was just mad because he had to get a new multi-pass. That's all that was.
Lilu Dallas Multipass.
Yeah.
Multipass.
Multipass. She knows it's.
I like the character because he is situationally aware and he's very good at putting things together, but at the same time, he has a sense of humor. So although he realizes he's in a dangerous situation, a life-threatening situation, he still has that levity that he brings to the film, and he still has that sarcasm, that trademark Bruce Willis sarcasm that he brings to the film, and it keeps it from being too serious and too action-adventure themed. I like that balance that they have between he is a good cop and he knows what he's doing, but he's also a funny guy.
Another thing I like about Bruce Willis's character is he actually gets hurt along the way. He does things and he gets more dirty and he gets more bloody, and the more stuff happens to him, the more it starts to show. There's that continuity.
You're mentioning all the action scenes and all the things where he actually gets hurt. One of the ones that took me a moment to register when I was watching it was when he had to walk over the broken glass, because I didn't think anything of it at the time until they show him walking over the glass, and I'm like, oh my God, he's barefoot. I forgot.
I love the feet foreshadowing too, eh? Because that's set up in the very beginning when he's on the plane, when the guys are just taking his shoes off. Great writing.
Exactly. Tremendous foreshadowing, though. That was good writing right there.
So, what'd you think of Al?
Al.
And you're going to stand there and tell me that he's going to give a damn about what you do to him if he makes it out of there alive?
Yeah, let's talk about Al. He's the LAPD sergeant who talks to John McClane while on the ground.
What was the actor's name? I don't remember.
His name is Reginald VelJohnson.
Now, the character of Al, that's a good character. You can tell he sympathizes. You can tell he respects John. And you can tell that he really wants to help John, but he's just being stonewalled by the bureaucracy.
Why don't you wake up and smell what you're shoveling?
But if you think about it, they're very similar because they're both kind of in the same situation.
Yes, yes.
They're both somewhere where they don't really want to be. They're both kind of stuck in this situation. They're helping each other out. They're the only two people that they can trust because they're the only people that are really talking to each other and listening to each other. They're very similar.
Yes, I have noticed that. There are a lot of parallels. And I think that's one of the reasons why they work so well together. Because even though they don't tell you that, you see that in Al, you see that in John, and you subconsciously make that link.
The conversations are one of the highlights of the film. Wouldn't you agree? And I love all the layers. This could have just been like a stock one-dimensional character. But no. He's got this whole dark backstory about shooting the kid by accident, about how hard it is to live with your mistakes, and how they don't teach you that in police school. That's so clever writing. I love how it goes in depth like that. You really get to get into the minds of these characters. Wouldn't you agree?
Exactly.
Nothing's by accident. Every character's there for a reason. Everything was written a certain way for a reason. All the characters involved matter somehow because they're all involved with the plot. There's character development between all these characters. They learn and grow with each other. They figure out what to do in the situation.
Right?
I like it a lot.
And when they meet for the first time at the end, it's kind of a heartwarming moment too. Almost more heartwarming than when Holly and John meet up again at the end.
Right?
And it's got such a satisfying storyline too.
Well, and even then, they do actually incorporate one last action scene with Carl apparently rising from the dead, or not being all the way dead.
I guess if he was just hanging there, he could have got out because he was just kind of dangling. He could have, he was strong, right? So, yeah.
Where suddenly there's that one last gunfight right at the end, right when you think it's all wrapped up.
But yeah, he ends up shooting Carl. So he kind of comes full circle, you know what I mean?
Yes.
My question for you is, do you think the end of Dumb and Dumber is a reference to Die Hard?
I love Die Hard.
Remember that? When out of nowhere, somebody's like, he's got a gun! And Lynn Lloyd pulls out a gun and shoots him.
He's got a gun!
Oh my God, I didn't think about that. I think you're right.
Lloyd! Lloyd!
Huh?
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, because Dumb and Dumber would have come out 3 or 4 years after that. So yeah, I think you're right. Wow, that's really good. Yes, it's amazing the way things are incorporated in films like that.
I even remember going to the theater to see Dumb and Dumber with you. Oh, I was so young.
Took you under my wing and showed you one of the many, many films that I showed you as you were growing up because, you know, I would be negligent as a brother to not show you things like that.
Exactly.
And you just were ecstatic. You got to watch the movie.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember going and seeing that in the theater with you.
We saw a lot of movies together.
Actually, I think we saw that one in the regular theater and also in the dollar theater when it was still in the dollar theater.
Oh my God, did you just mention the dollar theater?
Yep.
Oh, that was so long ago. They don't have those anymore, eh?
Wow, that shows our age.
Yeah, mind blowing, eh?
Wow.
Oh, it was a different time.
Right?
Yeah.
What do you think about Holly?
Her name was Bonnie Bedelia? Sorry if I butchered that. But she played Holly Gennaro McLean. I like how they have this estranged relationship that I'm not quite sure if they're already divorced, if they're just separated on the verge of divorce. But that was a very uncommon thing at the time. And I like how this movie is not a love story per se.
I thought that it was interesting with Holly, how even though she and John aren't getting along, even though there's obviously problems in their marriage, and you get the impression it's teetering on divorce, she obviously still cares about him. Because, I mean, she had her maid make up the spare bedroom so he wouldn't have to stay in a hotel. She told him that she wanted to invite him to come and stay at the house. So, obviously, she's still in love with him. She still has feelings there. She hasn't given up. She hasn't turned her back on him. She's in a rough spot where she's trying to figure out how to balance career and family.
It's obvious that they care for one another, because there's a lot of times Holly could have tried to rat him out when she realized he was alive, or she could have done the same thing Ellis did and try and get John to turn himself into the bad guys. But no, she kept her mouth shut. She stands by her man. Similarly, Bruce Willis could have just left, but he stuck around to save her and to save everyone else too, because it was the right thing to do, which shows a lot about both of their characters.
I got that as well. And if you think about it too, just where we are in history, that was 1988. That would be a very big deal for a woman to make it as an executive and to choose her career over her husband. I mean, I could see where women, they move up the corporate ladder and they're single and they're not really too concerned about a family or anything like that because they're driven career women. But at that point in time, at that point in history in the US, there were not many upper executive females who were married with families. So the fact that they made the bold statement for the purpose of the film that she left her husband to be able to go to Los Angeles for her job, I mean, that was virtually unheard of at that point in time.
Exactly. Despite the constant bickering, she remains faithful to John. She never gives up hope either.
Did Holly have any quotable quotes? I don't remember.
She has some pretty good quotes too, like when she insults Hans Gruber to his face. He's like, who's the idiot that put you in charge, or something like that. And she's like, you did after you killed my boss.
What idiot put you in charge?
You did. When you murdered my boss.
And that definitely actually adds credibility to the role that her character is fulfilling, because if I remember correctly, she's like an executive VP or something like that in the company.
Yeah, she's like an executive or something like that.
Well, someone like that is going to have that kind of an attitude. they're going to have that kind of assumption where they're going to tell someone off if they say something like that.
Personally, I'd pass on the job. I don't enjoy being this close to you.
Because they're in that role and they're used to having to deal with things. So it adds credibility to the character as well that, oh yeah, she really would be in this kind of a job.
It's almost like Han sort of respects her after that, after she stands up to him. What do you think?
Go on.
I thought so too.
There was a point when one of the henchmen comes in, I think it's Carl, and he gets all mad and he throws stuff around, and that's when she realizes, oh, John's alive. And they're like, what? Like the people around her, and she's like, only John can drive somebody that crazy.
Only John can drive somebody that crazy.
It shows she's intelligent. It shows she has a heart. It shows that she's tough when she has to be. So it's so within line of her character. It just makes sense. And even at the end, they don't necessarily like get together. They kind of reconcile. They're glad that they're both alive. Then they kind of drive away together. But kind of like Mrs. Doubtfire at the end of that, I'm kind of glad that that's how that movie ended. Sally Field didn't end up with Robin Williams. They stayed friends with each other. And they were nice about custody with the kids. But they weren't back together. I think that's more realistic that way. A lot of times love stories are way too forced. You know what I mean? Not every movie needs that.
I actually had a class years and years and years ago where the instructor talked about movie code, film code. He was very particular not calling it a movie, calling things films. But he talked about film code, and he was talking about lighting and camera angles and how there are just certain things, even if you're not aware of it, that they incorporate into filming, and that draws attention to like specific aspects you're supposed to draw from that scenario without them having to tell you this is how you're supposed to feel or what you're supposed to think.
But I did notice how Holly actually rattles Hans toward the end when she calls him a common thief. Did you notice that?
You're nothing but a common thief.
I am an exceptional thief, Mrs. McLean.
In the film, while Holly is held hostage, Hans and John refer to High Noon from 1952. Another fun of the many, many, many Western references. If you think about it, this movie is very similar to a Western. It's almost like a modern day Western if you think about it. You got like the lone cowboy idea, the lone ranger, so to speak. You got Hans Gruber with this whole attitude of this town's not big enough for the two of us. And then you got the whole, it's minor, but it's still there. You got the whole damsel in distress thing toward the end when Hans kidnaps and takes his wife hostage and has her at gunpoint. And you got that final shootout, that High Noon type of vibe kind of thing.
Yeah, of course. It's one of the reasons why Hans was such an amazing character, even though he was a bad guy. He had the ability to lead the people, even though they were terrorists. He actually was a really good leader. He displayed the ability to be able to plan, to come up with backup plans. He was well aware of where his people were, what they were doing. He used the strengths and weaknesses of his team to his advantage so that they could have the strongest team possible. I mean, it's not unlike the military in the way that he actually utilized those things to be a very good leader. So that was another reason why you want to root for him, but then you catch yourself and you're like, oh, wait, we're rooting for John McClane. He's the good guy.
Yes, I have to agree. Alan Rickman is so good as Hans Gruber.
I think Hans Gruber was an evil mastermind, but unfortunately, like many evil masterminds, he only had one or two reliable henchmen. The rest of them, he was surrounded by idiots. They just weren't capable. It's not like they came off as stupid. They just weren't capable. They weren't able to actually get done what he needed them to get done.
He's a very calculated bad guy. He's always playing chess. Do you know what I mean? Like, he's always one or two steps ahead of his enemies. And even if he has to, he can think on the fly.
He's not a villain who has like physical prowess or who is like a throwback to James Bond villains. He's someone who has intellect and he has a very specific goal. And you can tell he has planned and he has done his homework so that he can make this happen. He's not going to tolerate excuses. He's not going to tolerate things just not being able to go his way. He has contingency plan upon contingency plan, but he has everything geared towards going the way he wants it to go. And they show his intellect very early on with the lines that he has starting out.
When Alexander saw the breadth of his domain, he wept, for there were no more worlds to conquer.
You could tell right away, this is not someone to be trifled with. He's a serious man, and he's a very intelligent man.
Benefits of a classical education.
Just like that scene when they first meet up.
Hi there.
Because they hadn't seen each other before that. And they only knew each other by voice. So he recognized John McClane's voice, but he was able to throw his voice so that he would recognize him.
Please, God, no, you're one of them, aren't you? You're one of them.
Yes, yeah. Now, I remember when I was watching it for the first time, I was unclear on what he was doing when he first comes across John, because I thought, oh no, it's going to be the showdown. And then suddenly Hans is like, no, you're one of them.
No, don't kill me, please. No, please. Don't kill me, please.
Whoa, relax.
He starts scrambling away. I'm like, what is he doing? And as I'm watching, it occurs to me that this is a plan that's unfolding. And I'm like, oh, he even had this thought out. Wow.
It's pretty tricky with that accent. You gotta be on fucking TV with that accent.
It had the thinking on his feet, but I remember as I watched it, though, like, I thought it was going to be a showdown. So there was a little bit of a turn there in the plot where they're like, nope, not yet.
And if you think about it, he's a British actor playing a German thief pretending to have an American accent.
How's that for a slice of fried gold?
Yeah, boy! So many layers. There's shades of Tropic Thunder there.
I'm a dude playing a dude disguised as another dude.
What? Yeah, that's one thing I can say, both with the writing and the acting. Nothing in there was done by accident. Nothing in there was inconsequential. It's either foreshadowing or it's setting up something that is happening. You just don't realize it's unfolding in front of you. Everything in there was purposeful, which, again, probably had to do with them writing the script as it was being filmed and filming it in order.
I love how Hans's henchmen are actually capable villains. They're smart. They're not just dumb for the sake of being dumb, just so the bad guy can get by. Instead, they do little things, like they always look up.
That's something they train you in the military, is looking up. Because snipers like to take high positions, and so you look up to look for things that could possibly be dangers above you.
You know what I mean? Like, all of a sudden, they look around the room, the good guy's not there, and then the bad guys leave, and then you pan up, the camera pans up, and then boom, good guy's there. Why didn't they look up?
Yeah, I like that, how they actually had some henchmen that were, they were capable. They could think for themselves. They could actually adjust on the fly. They weren't written as, oh no, the good guy is here, now we can't do anything, like stormtroopers. They were much more capable than that.
That's so true. Okay, so we talked about John, we talked about Hans, we talked about Al, we talked about Holly. Now let's talk about these henchmen. They could have been one-dimensional characters with, like these small little roles that don't really matter. But no, some of these henchmen really do stand out. That's how memorable they are.
He had a few that were really capable. I forget some of the characters' names, but the one who had the long blonde hair that John gets into a fight with,
Carl.
He actually was a really capable fighter. He was a really capable terrorist, although that sounds weird.
Yeah. He's played by Alexander Godunov.
It's a good name. It's good enough.
Oh, wow. Good one. He gives such a commanding performance. And in my opinion, he steals the show in every scene that he's in.
One blood, you'll have it. But
he's got more dimension too, because that was one of the first people John McClane killed. It was his brother.
we do not alter the plan.
And if he alters it.
So now they got this whole vengeance plot that's off to the side that isn't really relevant to anything else, but it's still there. And it's what drives Carl, and his rage really fuels him. And that's kind of his downfall, if you think about it.
Exactly.
He's such a complex character. Layers. Again, layers. So many layers.
So many layers.
His body language and his comedic timing are perfect. Did you know before this he was a ballet dancer?
That's cool. Right on.
My favorite scene of him is when Ellis comes in to try to negotiate, and he just gives this look like, oh, can I just shoot him now, please? Like, do we have to listen to this?
Right? Kind of like, can we just take him out? You know we're going to. Can we just do it now?
Yeah, exactly.
What does he want?
It's not what I want, it's what I can give you. Look.
Then another one who was just brilliant. He was the one who was drilling the safe. I like Theo. Theo was good.
And then Theo. Yes, Theo. I'm so glad you mentioned Theo. That's cool that you know his name. Yeah, he's played by Clarence Gilliard. He was the charismatic tech expert.
I liked his sense of humor. I liked the way that he cracked up.
His undeniably likable personality makes him another standout among the group of thieves.
You can break the code.
You didn't bring me along for my charming personality.
I liked the way that he was kind of sassy with Hans, and he would actually like give him a little bit of crap back on the radio.
Are we on schedule?
One more to go, then it's up to you. And you better be right, because it looks like this last one's gonna take a miracle.
That's the thing about Hans, too. He's got this playful side to him. But there's no question that he's in charge.
It's Christmas, Theo. It's the time of miracles, so be of good cheer and call me.
There's a lot of times where like Carl or like Theo will like check him or they'll like question something that he says. But he very calmly, he just talks to them. He doesn't talk down to them. They all know who's in charge. And more importantly, Hans knows who's in charge.
He was very smart. He was able to figure things out as they were happening.
Let them fumble about outside and stay calm. This is simply the beginning.
Sure, some of them are nameless. Some of them get off pretty quickly, but these two are certainly a highlight of the film, if you ask me.
So many layers.
Oh, so many layers. Layers. Oh, the layers. There's so many layers. Did you notice how Carl and Theo made a bet about killing Takagi?
Yeah.
Told you. It's not over.
Carl, you better go and check on Heinrich's work up on the machine.
Which also, it's a commentary on how well radio was and how well acted it was, because those are peripheral characters. They're not main characters. Yet here we are 35 years later, and we still know exactly which characters those are as secondary characters in the film.
Yeah, James Shigeta plays the boss, Takagi. He's got a small role, but he matters too because he shows that these bad guys really mean business. It shows a lot about Hans too, just to go back to that real quick. He's confident enough in his plans that he knows, even if Takagi doesn't give up the information that's required, he can still do what he needs to do. Like you said, contingency after contingency, redundancy, redundancy, redundancy. Do you get it yet? Do you get it yet? Do you get it yet? Okay, now let's talk about Harry Ellis. He's played by Hart Bachner. He's that sleazy executive. He's even slimier than Ivan Ooze, if you ask me.
Ew, gross.
Too kind. Yeah.
His performance not only makes him a distinctively despicable character, but you can see that he's got a penchant for power and powder. I'll get to that later. Oh, he's got no idea who he's messing with, and John even tells him that. I think he deserved it.
Me too. He was such a scumbag, thinking he can just wheel and deal his way. We don't negotiate with terrorists. Yeah. Yeah.
Business is business. You use a gun, I use a fountain pen. What's the difference?
This makes his fate all the more satisfying. Because John tries to warn him. He tries to get him out of the situation before it's too late. He just doesn't listen. He's just too cocky. And that's his downfall.
Right.
Yeah. He's got a good quote, too.
And I love when he's talking to him, he's all Hans, whoopee, baby. Like, he's just thinking he's, like, in showbiz and trying to, like, schmooze the guy and negotiate a deal. No.
That Hans Booby line, yeah.
Hans, Booby, I'm your white knight.
I love how he's so confident in his ability to close that he goes in there and he's acting like the used car salesman, like he's wheeling and dealing some Wall Street deal with absolutely no idea that he is in a life or death situation. And he's even getting like really cozy with the way he's referring to Hans. You kind of like relate to Carl in that moment. You're like, yeah, you should just shoot him now. Yeah, whatever.
I must have missed 60 minutes. What are you saying?
Oh, speaking of scumbags. What'd you think of Richard the Weinberg? He played William Atherton, the cutthroat news reporter.
Yes. I think for a while that guy was typecast as the jerk because he was like the quintessential jerk.
The power grid was shut off by Dickless here.
They caused an explosion.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, he played the jerk in Ghostbusters.
Is this true?
Yes, it's true. This man has no dick.
I like how it has the social commentary about how the cutthroat the news was.
Okay.
And then he gets his comeuppance in the end.
Exactly.
Mr. McClane, now that it's all over after this incredible ordeal, what are your feelings?
Paul Gleason plays Dwayne T. Robinson, the LAPD commissioner or whatever. His performance is fine, but I don't like how dumb they make him. Like, he could have been a little bit more credible. Like, the news people got a lot of information on John really quickly, so why didn't the cops? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it seems like he unnecessarily dismissed him out of hand instead of seeing him as an asset. Even though he's from another agency from the other side of the country, he probably would have seen him as an asset if it was a real thing, but Hollywood, you know?
Yeah, it's just one of those things. Like, they could have written his character a little better.
Right?
But minor complaint, minor discrepancy.
I remember there was a couple of memorable scenes when he was in the limo. What was the limo driver's name?
I'm so glad you mentioned the limo driver. His name was Argyle.
Argyle, that's right.
A lot of people pronounce his name wrong. They say Devereaux, but it's actually Devoyer White. I like how he provides additional comic relief with the phone calls that he's on. He's just sitting in the limo, he's listening to music, he's sitting there with that big teddy bear. He's having the time of his life.
He's just out in the limo, he's having his own little freaking car concert. It's amazing.
I'm still coming by later. Sweetheart, have I ever lied to you?
It's not until later on that he realizes what's going on. And then he's kind of in the same boat as Al. He's kind of stuck there. But even that character, he still matters. Because at the end, he's the one who crashes into the van. He punches Theo in the face.
So many layers.
Yeah, layers. So many layers. I mean, learn a lot about Argyle too, just on the phone calls that he has. That's good world building, in my opinion.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
I think it was more than just a sidekick or a comic relief.
I thought Argyle was awesome. I thought that he added a little bit of levity. I thought too, with John being kind of uptight and coming to grips with the fact that he was coming to see his ex-wife and he didn't know what he was going to get into. Argyle was like the perfect guy to be driving the limo, talking to him. He was really, honestly, the first guy that he really spoke to in LA.
Oh, yeah, he would have been the introduction to LA. You're right. He's the first person he spoke to in Los Angeles. That was like from there.
Argyle, I'm your limo driver. Nice beer.
This kind of sets the stage for everything. Wow. That's awesome. Good insight.
So, Argyle was a good intro to LA for him, and he kind of helped set John's mental state.
That's a good point. I hadn't considered that.
There were some unexpected comic relief in there, too, because they followed the trope of FBI coming in and taking over and disregarding local law enforcement. It was funny at first. Their names were Johnson and Johnson. That was kind of a little bit of foreshadowing for just how ironic these characters are going to be.
I'm Agent Johnson. This is Special Agent Johnson.
Oh, how you doing?
No relation.
Yes, Johnson and Johnson. I'm so glad you mentioned them, too. They're played by Robert DeVee and Grant L. Bush.
But yeah, they ended up getting no respect from John. They treated him like he was some local yokel and how he had no skills, no training. They didn't take him seriously at all until things started blowing up and things didn't go the way that they thought they were going to go. They went the way John was telling them that they were going to go because he was smart enough to recognize the patterns and to go ahead and evaluate the bad guys he was up against and figure out, oh, if this happens, they're going to do this.
How does he know so much about this?
They have no regard for anybody. They're going to play everything by the book, the way that they think they should do it. They don't care about John. They don't care about Al. They don't care about the police chief commissioner guy or whatever.
I know they were intended to be good guys, but they were written to be unlikable because, you know, they're FBI, so they're law enforcement, so they're supposed to be someone who we root for. But those guys were horrible. Like, they just came in, tried to take over, had no respect for the local police, had no respect for John McClane. They refused to acknowledge that he could possibly have been a police officer. Like, they just weren't having it.
But again, these characters matter.
Yeah, it just made them unlikable characters. But again, good writing. You know, they were written to be that way.
Yeah, that makes their death all the more satisfying in the end too, eh?
Exactly. And weren't they limited on the amount of time they could film too?
That scene, originally, when they were planning it out, they thought it would take about 3 nights to shoot it. However, they were only given 2 hours by the city in one night. So they had this very limited window of time for one of the most elaborate shots in the whole film. And then the LAPD got all nitpicky, saying that, oh, you can't fly a helicopter within 200 feet of this skyscraper or any surrounding skyscrapers. Can't you believe that?
I know, that's just nitpicking. No, you can't fly an aircraft within 200 feet of a building. That's dangerous. Stupid rules.
They used miniatures of the tower. That was actually a remote-controlled helicopter, and they had to use that to crash into the building instead. Talk about movie magic, eh?
I thought so too. Especially when he's in the air duct. I know you mentioned that part before where he's got the little monologue talking about going to LA. There was another time where he uses ingenuity involving one of the elevator shafts.
Im Heizungshaus unter dem Dach.
He's an elevator shaft.
Where he had to make it from one floor down to another floor, and he takes a flying leap where he's tethered at the floor he's on, and he's trusting that he's going to sail down the shaft and fly into the doors on the floor he needs to go to.
So in that documentary, they were saying that the 3rd floor explosion scene was one of the hardest scenes to shoot. It took a few attempts for them to get it right, but they built a miniature to blow up the 3rd floor, because you can't just blow up buildings, right? You can't just blow up elevator shafts.
Exactly. That's dangerous.
It was like a 40-foot replica of this elevator shaft. And while they were filming it, the stuntman accidentally fell. Like, he wasn't supposed to fall, but he did. And he wasn't hurt or anything like that, so they still used the take, but I just thought that was a really crazy story. Like, whoa.
Oh, wow.
I'm just glad he didn't get hurt.
Now, I remember actually along those lines too, there was another take like that when Hans Gruber falls. Alan Rickman did not expect it to be a long fall. And so that shock on his face and surprise, that was sincere. He didn't know he was going to fall a long way.
Wow. The fireball in the elevator shaft was shot with real pyrotechnics, using a miniature of said shaft. Think of it of like Independence Day when they blow up the White House. Or think of it of like Star Wars with the Death Star. Same idea.
That is pretty cool. I did not know that.
Somewhat smaller scale, but same idea. No pun intended.
Yeah.
It's so funny too, the way that it's written. When the bad guys do get the vault open because they trick the FBI, and it's the FBI that actually opens the vault for them.
Yes. Yeah.
Regular as clockwork. Or a time lock. Precisely.
You kind of root for him, and then you remember, oh, wait, we're rooting for John. Hold on. You know?
The circuits that cannot be cut are cut automatically in response to a terrorist incident.
It's funny how it works that way, eh? That's good writing, I have to agree.
You asked for miracles, dear. I give you the FBI.
You start rooting for the bad guys for a while, you kind of have to check yourself, you know what I mean? You're like, yeah, woohoo, they did it. Ooh, they're the bad guys. They did it.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. It's like, as an audience, you have this brief little moral blip where you're like happy for the bad guy, and then you're like, oh wait, they're the bad guy. And they talk about in the Netflix show, The Movies That Made Us, how it was a miracle that that movie even actually made it out with the accelerated timeline, with the limitations on shooting, with the script being written as it was being filmed. Like, it was just a miracle that it even actually made it to the theaters.
Spontaneity at its best. I'm glad you brought that up, because if you think about it, this was all done in a time before CGI. So all these impressive practical effects really enhance the viewing experience, because everything's really happening. There's really fire, things are really blowing up. It really adds to the movie when there's that real sense of danger for the stuntmen that were involved with it.
Right?
Did you know that the fire hose stunt is a reference to the Howard Lloyd film Safety Last from 1923?
That is pretty cool. That's a good fun fact.
Bruce Willis actually jumped 25 feet into the air while the stunt crew exploded gasoline all around him. He even had to cover himself in flame-resistant gel before taking the leap. And when he landed, he actually landed on the edge of the bag, the big airbag down below. So everybody rushed over to him just because he could have died.
Wow. That's amazing.
So the building that they used for shooting was the Fox Plaza. It was on the Fox lot as a part of the Fox Corporation, and was filled with corporate law offices, but it was still under construction. That's why they wrote that into the script.
Thought for the Fox building, they only had a few hours in the middle of the night they could film.
They were still allowed to film there while it was still functioning. The only thing is, they couldn't film any of the gunfights or any of the explosion scenes until after 5 p.m.
Again, with Fox's rules.
But even though they waited and they went along with the regulations, they still got complaints from the neighbors. Can you believe it? It's Hollywood. Like, what do they expect? Of course they're going to shoot movies. Where do they think they're living?
Right?
Oh my god, this flick is so quotable. What are some of your favorite quotes, Rick?
Yippee-ki-yay, Mr. FLIXTER.
Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
What do you on the emergency radio channel?
Wherever you are, this channel is reserved for emergency calls only.
No fucking shit, lady! Do I sound like I'm ordering a pizza?
That's awesome. Here's some of my favorite quotes that we haven't mentioned yet.
Now I have a machine gun. Ho, ho, ho. Another orphan of a bankrupt culture who thinks he's John Wayne, Rambo, Marshall Dillon. Do you really think you have a chance against us, Mr. Cowboy?
I was always kind of partial to Roy Rogers, actually. I really like those sequin shirts.
Oh, John, what the fuck are you doing? How the fuck did you get into this shit?
Thanks for the advice.
Oh my god, the quarterback is toast.
Who are you, then?
Line in the ointment, Hans. A pain in the ass.
Well, I hope that's not a hostage.
Well, Mr. Takagi did not see it that way, so he won't be joining us for the rest of his life.
I promise I will never even think about going up in a tall building again.
'Twas the night before Christmas, and all through the house not a creature was stirring.
We're gonna need some more FBI guys, I guess.
Except the four assholes coming in the rear in standard 2x2 cover formation.
Happy trails, Hans.
Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
Yes. Yes.
So now let's get to the great debate, shall we?
Merry Christmas.
So Rick, in your opinion, why do you think Die Hard
I love Die Hard.
is a Christmas movie?
Well, first of all, it obviously takes place at Christmas. It's the Christmas party at Nakatomi Plaza. There's all of what would have been the stereotypical 1980s bad behavior at the office party, Typically, that'd be like a holiday party. So popular that, in fact, even to this day, you can get T-shirts and sweatshirts that say Christmas Party, Nakatomi Plaza, 1988. You can find them. They're on Amazon. They're on eBay.
Whoa, really?
Oh, yeah. I even saw an ugly sweater.
That's so cool. I didn't know that. I'll leave links below in the description for that.
It was amazing. Second of all, the way people are dressed outside. It's cold. I mean, again, not a summer movie. There, of course, is the theme of the family sticking together with John and Holly, even though they're estranged from one another. Holly invites him to come and stay at her place rather than staying at a hotel. So even Christmas messaging is involved in this film. But the biggest thing, though, is they do have the gags throughout the film where they actually tie it back to being Christmas. Like one of the corpses, there's a Santa hat. There's the Christmas trees. So clearly, even the writers intended for it to be a Christmas movie. They kind of wrote that in. Can't really dismiss that on a band. So like you said at the very beginning, there are two types of people in this world. Those who believe Die Hard is a Christmas movie and those who are wrong.
So, I went through and I meticulously counted.
That's right.
Because I was curious, just how much Christmas iconography was in this flick?
You want to do that?
I counted 14 uses of the word Christmas.
Yes.
15 Christmas decorations.
Wow.
19 Christmas trees.
Right?
And 7 Christmas carols.
Absolutely.
Oh, and then there was 4 other Christmas references.
Yes.
In the office in the beginning, Holly mentions Ebenezer Scrooge. And then when Holly's on the phone with her daughter, she mentions no snooping for presents. So that's another reference. And she says something about we'll see what Santa can do. And then ho 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 is written in blood on Carl's brother's shirt. Now I have a machine gun. Ho ho ho.
I love it. That was good.
And that's not even including one of the main characters' names being Holly. Did you even realize that?
Wow. See, clearly a Christmas movie.
See, Elsa agrees.
Yes.
That is more than Home Alone and more than Miracle on 34th Street. See, Christmas movie.
Awesome.
So here's my reasoning for picking Home Alone and Miracle on 34th Street. Not only are they two of my all-time favorite Christmas movies, but there's so many people out there that consider these quintessential Christmas movies. Wouldn't you agree, Rick?
I thought so too.
Home Alone had 7 uses of the word Christmas. 29 Christmas decorations. 7 Christmas carols. And 7 Christmas trees. Oh, and there was 10 other Christmas references too.
Wow.
And Miracle on 34th Street, the original, it had 8 uses of the word Christmas. 3 decorations. 4 Christmas carols. 1 Christmas tree. And then 4 other references.
No, I did not know that.
So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Definitive proof why Die Hard...
I love Die Hard.
It's a Christmas movie. The numbers don't lie, people. Stuff that in your stocking.
I love it.
Correct me if I'm wrong. You can just leave that in the comments below. I could have miscounted. I'm human. And just like the best family-friendly Christmas flicks, it's got 21 murders, 10 smoked cigarettes, 26 F-bombs, and cocaine references sprinkled all throughout.
Cocaine's a hell of a drug.
Total family movie. I'm sorry, were we talking about Die Hard or I love Die Hard. Or the Boondock Saints there? I got confused.
No, we're talking Miracle on 34th Street.
Okay.
Could you imagine if Santa was a killer in that movie and it had a body count because he was going around like killing all the non-believers.
Right.
That's a very different Miracle on 34th Street.
Oh my God. That reminds me, if you haven't seen it, you need to see Violent Night.
No, I haven't seen Violent Night.
I watched it. Oh my God, it's great. I didn't see it in the theater. I saw it on Prime, but it is amazing.
Yeah, I'm gonna watch that for sure.
Think it's an unconventional Christmas movie in the same way like in the 90s The Ref was an unconventional Christmas movie. Yeah.
Oh, it's on my naughty list. Overall, it still amazes me how, no matter how many times I've seen this movie, this flick still enthralls me to this day. Every time I put it on, I just magnetize right to the screen. Eyes glued there, watching. Can't stop. Despite knowing the outcome of each of the action sequences, they still fill you full of excitement. It's just such a adrenaline-inducing atmosphere. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the comedy helps make characters more relatable, too, in a way. Just a little about laughing with someone that brings you closer together. You know what I mean?
Yes.
We talked about how the direction, the writing, all the characters introduced matter because they all take part in the plot somehow and help move the story forward. It's a very simple premise, but it goes a long way. But because of that, they can expand on all these little characters and kind of fill in the gaps, so to speak. It really gives this film heart. Often replicated, never duplicated. Die Hard.
I love Die Hard.
Changed what action movies can be. Fun fact. It was selected for preservation in the National Film Registry in 2017, being deemed, quote, culturally, historically, and aesthetically significant by the, end quote, by the United States Library of Congress. The masterful direction, clever writing, extraordinary stunts, brilliant acting, and satisfying Christmasness, so to speak, all add up to one hell of a flick. I wouldn't want you to miss Chris on Christmas. Ho, ho, ho. So, this flick doesn't just deck the halls in the face. It shoots them first, and then blows them to smithereens.
Fire.
I love it. Hence, a Christmas movie.
Tell me, brother, what would you grade Die Hard?
I love Die Hard. I would have to give that an extra large popcorn.
Ah, an excellent choice. My official grade for Die Hard?
I love Die Hard.
It's an extra large popcorn with a large eggnog on the side.
And free refills.
Yeah, free refills too. Yeah. Yeah, totally.
So, you could say our next guests are barking up the wrong Christmas tree. Yeah. But I'll make their heads jingle all the way. Bring it on. Yeah. Meow, 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 meow. And now, Puppy Pandemonium. Paw Humbug.
Max, are you on camera, buddy? You sure are. Oh, Aggie's on camera. She's got her sweater on. She's styling. Oh, look at that.
Look at that, Aggie. Oh, yeah. Okay, there you go. Good girl.
Say hello to Elsa.
Hello, Elsa.
Honestly, darling, I'm so relieved this movie wasn't about autoerotic asphyxiation. How marvelous. Until next time, I'm at a matinee. I'm now a film critic extraordinaire. And I love this wick from head to mistletoe.
Fresh start.
Oh, yeah. So we tried doing this. So we were on talking about Die Hard.
I love Die Hard.
And he messed up on the mic. It recorded me, but it didn't record him at all. So we're doing it over. Much like the other guys. Do over. Fresh start. Fresh start.
Maybe we should call ourselves the Febreze Brothers because it's feeling so fresh right now. Right?
And remember, after you leave out milk and cookies for Santa, make sure you leave out Twinkies, cigarettes, and a pair of shoes in your air duct for John McClane for Christmas.
Merry Christmas, John McClane.
Damn right, Merry Christmas, John McClane. I love you, brother. Merry Christmas.
I love you too, brother. Merry Christmas.
Ho, ho, ho.
Did you know that I'm a film critic for HorrorBuzz.com? You can read my reviews on their website, and I make frequent appearances on their YouTube channel, HorrorBuzz Live. So I'll leave links below.
Theo, it's the time of miracles, so be of good cheer.